Welcome to From the Ashes, the Dungeon Crawler Network podcast all about Ashes of Creation by Intrepid Studios. Bear witness to the rebirth of the MMORPG genre from the ashes of an industry that has left the gamers behind. I'm Aggelos, founder of the Dungeon Crawler Network, and we are coming to you live from the Mighty Beard Tavern, and I'm joined by my amazing co-hosts. First up, we got Stormslord. How are you, buddy?
Doing great.
Excellent. We got the one, the only, the guy who carries us all the time, Alpha Soul. And he's muted. And he's still muted. He might be really good at the Battle Royale, but not so good about hitting the mute button.
For that. I've got an excuse for that. I'm still calming down from the last win jitters.
Oh, okay. All right. As I said, really good at winning, not so good at knowing where the mute button is. All right. Yes. And also, member of the DCN Shield Wall, Crojack.
I'm going to hate the day I brought the fact that I like that name, Shield Wall.
You really are. I know.
Yep.
I know. It's okay, buddy. I told you could use it. Just do it.
No, it's yours. I can't take it unless I kill you in combat, in man-to-man, one-on-one combat, to the death. Then I can take it.
I'm on that. Let's do it.
Yes.
All right. Anyway, before the 101 duel goes down between Crojack and I, we got a fun podcast for you this week. I think it'll be fun. Well, part of it will be fun. Some of it may not be so much fun. Who knows? We'll see. Anyway, first up, we got new community guidelines on the Discord and some reshaking up there. A little bit of news, and of course, the trolls are already throwing a fit and hating it already.
Oh, noes.
Oh, man.
Poor things.
I tell you. Nothing better to do than sit around and pick wings off flies. Anyway, we also had a stress test, is probably the only thing that I can call it today. Mm-hmm. And for some testers, it may have been more stressful than others.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we're going to be continuing our progression discussion once again, picking up with the legend, wait for it, dary.
You don't even watch the show.
He had to. One episode.
It's actually really funny. I haven't, but my wife adores that show, and I'm surprised she hasn't flipped out over there. She's on her computer. She probably has her headphones on. Didn't even hear me say it, but yeah.
Yep.
I've seen that with my twins at least twice through every season.
Yeah,
You've watched all of it? All right.
Oh, hilarious show. You got to see it, man.
I'm gonna have to. I'll have to look at it. I know
you gotta binge it one season at a time.
One season at a time. All right. Well, maybe I'll do that. But before I do that, I gotta say thank you to all of our amazing supporters over at patreon.com/Dungeon Crawler Network, as well as our subscribers here on twitch.tv/Dungeon Crawler Network. You guys help keep the metaphorical torches lit and our shows running each and every week for you. So you guys are amazing. I just love you to no end. We also had another 5-star review on iTunes. Of course, I'm really excited about all of that. You yourself left us a 5-star review on iTunes. An awesome and fun podcast to listen to with at least 3 or 4 hosts each time. That's true. My favorite part is that they take the time to respond to comments. This is a real podcast. I appreciate that. I really do, because I know I do my very best to answer each and every comment that comes onto our Twitter, onto our YouTube, any of that stuff. So it's exhausting at times, but I always try to engage. I always feel like if you're willing to take the time to write something to me, I should at least do the same and write something back. Anyway, all right, guys, let's go ahead and jump right on into our discussion. First up, the Ashes of Creation official Discord got a little bit of a shakeup this week.
Yeah.
The community management team has been busy archiving, removing, hiding, changing, and messing around with the Discord rules. I know they have a few new community guidelines that are up now, which were different than before, most of which is targeting some of the harassment and things like that was taking place in the official Discord. The doxing and all that fun stuff that was happening early on. Of course, they got rid of guild diplomacy, which I never thought they would do, but they did get rid of it. It's now just AOC guild discussion, so it's a shadow of its former self. But
at least those people still have a place to go, because if you don't give them a home with which to congregate, they'll just spread elsewhere and spread their poison everywhere else.
It's true, but they also now have new Discord bots, which have been deleting posts and things from people that apparently have been. Yeah, no, it's actually really good. They're working, because I'll say one thing, for instance, they have timers on posts. I went to post something in there today, and I messed something up, and me being the bad community member that I am, did not read all the rules first. But apparently, if you delete a post, and there's timers on certain channels, so I tried to post something, and then it just kept deleting it over and over and over again. So now I'm in the wait period till I can fix it. That's fine. I'm glad it's working. I should have read all the rules. I didn't. So, I know. My bad. Mea culpa. Anyway, so I know there has been a little bit of, I guess, ire because of the changes. What do you guys think about those changes? For the good? For the bad?
They're for the good. That place, I cannot... Up until this point, I've not been able to tell my audience, go to the official Discord, check it out, check out the community there, check out the atmosphere there. I've warned them to stay away, to be quite frank. So hopefully by doing this, it cleans it up to the point where I'm not so afraid of suggesting people who are my audience, who range from the age of 13 to 85, right? And I don't want to put kids in there. I don't want to put people who have never touched an MMO in there. I want that to be a positive experience for people who are either, like I said, children, first time MMO, first time ever hearing of Intrepid, which is everybody. So yeah, just clean it out and make it a place where I can send people to get the answers, to interact with the community.
I mean, to be frank, I'm not even sure it's still ready yet.
It's better, that's for sure.
Good start. It's a long way to go, and I don't know if they're going to get there.
I think the problem. How do I want to say this? The problem was lack of moderation in the beginning.
I wouldn't say lack of moderation.
I
would say the moderators were given these guidelines to play with.
That's still lack of moderation.
Okay, okay, I see what you mean.
Lack of moderation from the higher ups.
Yeah.
They've literally now allowed the problem is they've allowed this cancer to form. I don't think it'll ever go away.
Oh, sure it will, with really stringent laws and lots of ban hammers.
It's possible.
But they literally just have to hammer it to death. But to do that, you're going to anger a lot of people who are used to a certain level of freedom in that culture.
Yeah, that culture that's been that way for the last year. I will say a year. The first year or so of the Discord, I would have said, yeah, by all means, go nuts. It's gotten bad over the past few months, though.
I think once they have some concrete new information to discuss, especially regarding the MMORPG itself, they'll have a lot more discussion around that and a lot less free time on their hands to do what they will.
That's part of it. There's a lot of free time, let alone they can pick on anything they want because there's nothing to do. There's nothing.
Right. No, it goes back to my mantra I say all the time. Bunch of angry kids in a room have nothing to do better than pick wings off flies. That's what they're doing.
Pretty much.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping it actually does a good job, but at the same time, they've been allowed to fester for so long, and and I still believe that the moderators have a bit of a leash on them.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so.
Banning from Discord also isn't enough.
No.
I think for repeat offenders, especially when they get these scripts and stuff, the one thing I know they're working on is the ability to hand out permissions based on a Discord bot that will run a script against the database, so people's Discords will be tied to their user accounts, which will then make them behave a little more because
accountability.
Yeah.
What you say and what you do will affect your actual account. Accountability.
If you're bad enough,
think that's a good
guess
idea.
what? Your account's now banned. I think.
Like I said before, this kind of culture stems from the top, right? Culture is a dictatorship from the very top of the hierarchy. So you have to go there. If the culture doesn't change over the next, I don't know, pick a timeline, then it's the top's fault because it starts there. And it's their decree on how their culture down below is meant to be. This is true for CEOs. This is true for the military. This is true for tons of things. So if 6 months, 12 months from now, Discord's still a mess, it's not necessarily the moderator's fault. It's above them. It's the people telling the moderators how to act and how to moderate.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll just have to wait and see how that turns out.
I'm curious how it's going to turn out, just because I think a lot of the problems are actually caused by so many different groups coming together and taking Ashes of Creation as their own, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like the PvP group comes in, we're all PvP, we're all about killing people, whereas the RP group comes in, and then you've got your casuals over here, etc. And everyone wants this game to be so good. So you've got so many different people that are shoved into the same area with no moderation on top of that. And
Yeah.
you get what you get, right?
You're right. You're very much right. You have the hardcore PvP crowd, which I'm not saying they're toxic because they're not. That's what they like doing, and not everyone is that way. But they tend to have a little bit more aggressive stance. That's fine. But then you have those group. Then you have, like you said, the RPers, the PvEers. The problem also with Ashes of Creation at this point, it's not really a problem per se if they can pull it off, but it's being marketed as a game that will cater to everyone.
Yep.
Usually, when you try to cater to everyone, you end up catering to no one perfectly,
Sure.
or even remotely well. Generally speaking, that's what happens. Most people are just kind of like, oh, kind of good for me, but not quite.
Yeah.
A really good PvP game is a PvP game. A really good role-playing game is a role-playing game. You know what I mean? It's so hard to hit everyone evenly.
No, I agree.
Adequately.
And
I was
each...
thinking on this.
Go ahead. No.
I was gonna say I was thinking on this exact same topic, and I'm gonna inject a little thing. It's not gonna be political, but I wanted to draw an analogy, right? When you hear the statement, it was put out. It was a campaign slogan, "Make America Great Again." Everyone thought of that statement differently, right?
Oh yeah,
The interpretation of that statement was different. And if you think about it, Ashes of Creation has the exact same slogan, "Make MMOs Great Again," right? Well, what does that mean? Everyone has a different opinion.
Yeah,
of
every
what that
American
actually
has
means.
a dream of what America looks like to them.
Right, and the same converse
Same
is
thing with
everyone has a
MMOs.
dream. Everyone has a dream of what that ideal MMO looks like, and so, yeah.
It's so funny you said that because that was the exact same thing I was going to say. I mean,
Yeah, just
almost
even use that line.
verbatim. I was like, yeah, the problem is you have all these groups and they're bringing their preconceived notions of what a game is into it
Yep.
and aren't checked in any way. So,
Yeah, the Arcade crowd, the World of Warcraft crowd, the ESO crowd, the BDO crowd. How many
that
people who
won't
love
change.
BDO are talking about the combat of Ashes, hoping it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
like BDO, right?
Yeah.
That won't change until something rolls out for real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because until then, it's all I can say what I want. You can say what you want.
Yeah, it's hearsay.
Until it rolls out, you can make up what you want.
And hell, even the first alpha we get, that's going to be a portion. I wouldn't even I wouldn't put my thumb on anything until Alpha 2.
right.
Until you have all 50 levels, the full map, the full breadth of the game. At that point, you can start drawing some legit conclusions.
There's
Yes.
going to be an exodus from Ashes of Creation when it comes out. I'm going to say this
Oh.
now. It happens
yeah.
in every MMO, but I think it's going to be...
Everyone. First 3 months is the golden age of an MMO. First 3 months. Everyone's playing. It's madness. Everyone's exploring. Everyone's having a blast. And then it peters off from there.
It's true,
Happens to everyone.
but I'm thinking it's not so much whether or not, like, what happens to every MMO. What's going to happen is one or more of these groups are going to become disenfranchised with what their vision of Ashes of Creation was, and what
what's gonna be?
Ashes of Creation.
Almost everybody will.
Yeah.
And I was going to say that, and then go a step further. Everybody will who's on the extreme end of their favorite thing.
Yes,
The extreme PvPers are not going to be happy there's not enough PvP. The extreme raiders are not going to be happy because there's not enough raid. Everyone who kind of maybe likes everything, they'll stay.
oh yeah,
But the extreme edges of all these different spectrums of an MMO, they're not going to be satisfied by this MMO that's trying to cater to everybody.
oh yeah. I'd agree with that 100%. Because I mean,
We'll
same
lose
thing
the fringes.
happened when ESO came out. What happened Well, I mean, besides the fact that there were problems, which I honestly didn't think there were any problems, but hey, whatever. I liked the more hardcore progression, but what happened is you started seeing the fringe people come out, and what hit most was the Elder Scrolls fans who realized this wasn't just Skyrim with friends. It actually felt more like a real...
ESO had that issue where Skyrim was so amazing, and that was a lot of people's first introduction to the world of Elder Scrolls. And they come to the MMO, and it's a different experience because it's a different type of game.
It was an MMO. Like, the progression systems were different, and when people hit that wall, which they did, they left because it wasn't Skyrim with friends. Now, I actually, prior to 1 Tamriel, which was heralded as one of their best expansions, and I know this isn't an ESO show, but it makes a comparison, is that before that, it was an MMO, and I loved it. After that, it became Elder Scrolls with friends, and that's when I started to wane interest. But given their target audience, they came back. The Elder Scrolls only fans who would have been more happy with Elder Scrolls 6 than with ESO. Now they're more happy with it, and that's exactly what's going to happen here, especially like you said with circling back to the Discord rules. A lot of these people tend to be on the more, like, the trolly ones tend to be more of an extreme point of view in almost anything. Not just because it grants a reaction. You'll start seeing them fade off, especially when corruption system kicks in. I can't pwn
Or
these all
even
day.
the people who really love RP. I know some, actually I can think of a couple names off the top of my head, who are hardcore RPers and are worried that there's not going to be enough UI elements or elements in the game to support the role-playing desires. And they might leave. Like, what if they don't give them a dice rolling system? I'm trying to think of other RP. Or a really fleshed out emote system. If they can't RP effectively, they'll go find something else.
Yeah, and I mean, let's be frank here. Given the Battle Royale, which we're going to talk about here in just a second, sorry, but the shuffle that you can get is not an RP emote. The modern Fortnite dances are not an RP emote.
No, they're not.
Emotes in the Battle Royale are so rough. They're so bad.
Yeah, that's just something that is going to turn RPers away hardcore.
So bad.
Real fast.
Anyway, let's go ahead and jump into the latest stress test that happened literally 20 minutes ago. The official Discord was alight. I think it was yesterday as they announced it, that they were going to do a brief stress test. They'll literally hammer the servers. I know a lot of people in Hands of Fate, our guild, was like, oh, we're going to hop in and do some BR testing, which I know some of them were. But I know what I say is don't expect it to be up all night. I would be surprised if you even got to play a full game because they're going to try to light the servers on fire. And this is where I say, Crojack, how was your experience?
I am very much calmed down from when I was streaming and I raided Alluring because I needed to stop because I was getting very annoyed. I'm much more calmed down from there. And when you worded it as you did to explain that they wanted to light the servers on fire, fine. My only frustration is I remember back in September, we were shooting for October. And then in October, we were shooting for December. Official release in December. And here we are, beginning of February, and we're still in this constant state of what feels like a pre-release product. It's very frustrating. And we're trying to keep a level head. I'm trying to remember, okay, this is all for testing, et cetera, et cetera.
It is.
It's draining for those of us who are trying to get into this product and to defend this product and to fall in love with this product.
And
with this company.
It wasn't explained well enough what was supposed to be. This is a hockey stick test. You want to turn on the fire hose, right? You want to see what's going to happen. That's exactly what this test was. It's exactly what they did. They've got what they expected, but they didn't manage the expectations enough because people weren't going. They're expecting to play. There's no way you're going to play in a hockey stick. Not going to happen.
I mean, I don't want to fault them for that because I thought their test was descriptive, but maybe that's coming from me being IT and being a, I don't want to say developer because I'm not, but being in IT, being in that experience before, I mean, working with Stormslord, messing around with apps that we're working on, stuff like that is like I'm used to. This is probably not going to work, but I understand the purpose of what you're trying to do. To the average gamer, they don't understand that.
Trying really hard to.
No, and you get there.
Trying really hard to temper expectations, basically, to understand what's happening, understanding this is a process. But
Yeah.
overall, just kind of being burnt out of the battle royale and itching for
You
stuff
want
as
to
opposed
play
to
a
LOL.
real thing, and you're not going to get it until they get past all this, right? They have to get to the point where they got that data, and then what they're doing is, in the meantime, they're in a, very well, I think, doing a parallel. I hope doing this whole hockey stick test, right? Fire hose test, and they're working on the development of the rest at the same time. So you could be doing testing in this arena. You want to see what's going to happen with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 servers when you turn on 200 people. What happens when you do a concurrent 200 folks? What's going to happen, right? You need to figure this out. You need to see what's going to happen. But again, you got to tell people, if they're not QA folks, they're not going to know. You're not going to be able to play this game. The intent is not to play it. The intent is to see if we can bring it down.
Right.
They sure did.
And that was so they succeeded, right?
Yes, they did.
But not with everybody's thoughts in mind, because they weren't expecting that.
Since Alpha Soul, you answered my chat question. How was the game up to 200 people?
So we were paying attention. I was paying specifically attention to how it felt and what the response was. It seems to be right now up to 170 is where it's fine, or so. As soon as it starts passing 170, that's where you start getting the significant delays, the lag, and the issues that we saw. So whenever it hit like 200, I think at the highest I saw it was like 204, 205. Then it would just be, I mean, it wasn't completely bad, but it was bad enough where it's not playable. And then it would also lock whenever they would you'd load into the final screen, and then you would be coming down and it would just lock up at the top. And,
You sounded really good there for a second. You may want to face your mic more when you're.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, no, you were good, but at the end I'm like, oh, that's where his mic level is. Then you turned your head towards your mic. I'm like, oh, that sounds perfect.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
No, that's cool. I'm seeing people in chat. They were mentioning about 110. It felt really, really smooth and up and around that point. I know people said it went above 200, but the thing to remember, I know people are wanting Castle Siege, but if today is any indication, which hopefully they'll be able to turn it around, Castle Siege is supposed to be 200 or 100 versus 100. If they can't get 200 people running in the BR smoothly, you also got to remember the one other thing with the BR is this is multi-factor at this point. 200 people in the BR, there's very rarely that many people close together.
I was just going to say, we're talking about 200 people in a tight vicinity around a castle gate.
Yeah. Could you imagine? Right. Could you even imagine all 100 people landing in Castle in the BR?
So I expect in the next couple of weeks before Castle Siege, you'll see tests that somehow arrange that.
So they do.
So starting storm, real tight around Castle.
Exactly. Right. Because what you're going to do is you need to know if they're going to have 200 people on a server, right? Because you're going to have two sides. So if we're dying at 110, 170, we need to know what that's affecting. Is it slowing down the memory? Is it slowing down the disk access? What is it slowing down?
The IO.
This test told us that, right? What's going on?
Yeah.
Something's going on. We adjust, we do it again. And then we make it tighter. We adjust and we do it again. So you're going to see all that again, right? Because you're going to take what you did now up to 200 people and see where it faults, right? You went looking for that hockey stick. When does it shoot way up? And then what's being shot way up? What is causing that to happen? And then you replicate it, do it again, fix it, do it again, fix it, do it again. That's great, but like Project had said, there's not going to be more stuff. There's more AoE damage, all this other put in there. You're going to do that again with Castle Siege. And then Horde mode. And then piece by piece by piece. This is an expected thing to do when building any system. You've got to see where the boundaries are. And you got to see where your failure points are, and what you believe your average is going to be. If you believe your average is going to be 200 folks on a server, you got to get that to work well. But you can't do that until you try.
Yeah.
Yeah, because forecasting this issue to a node siege on an MMO server where you probably could have guilds, a bunch of guilds of 200 people plus.
Yep.
It gets intense quick.
You're going to have to stage this for every different type. We're going to have to go through this. And people have to expect that testing to occur because you can't test virtually. There are products that can allow you to test virtually in games and out of games, but they have their place, but they will not do the same thing as real people hitting the keyboard.
Yep.
I wonder if during our alpha stage of MMO testing, they'll tell us on a weekend, all right, we're going to have an event at this castle. We want to hit 600 people, 700 people, 1,000 people at this castle to see what happens.
I would expect that to
I'm
occur.
guessing they will, because I mean they did it this past test, right?
Yeah.
Two of those matches, they were just like everyone land at castle, right?
Mhm.
Everyone land at castle. Everyone.
Very similar is going on in Atlas, but they didn't tell us it's a test, but it is a test. What they have is they have a situation where you have all these folks that they get to 100 years old and they've got to be rejuvenated. Well, they put it on one server per set, right? And said, go, you've got 6 hours to get in there. So it's taking all these folks and putting them on one server.
Yeah.
Right? That event's going to drive it, the incentive to get there. Like you said, Project, that's going to occur.
Right.
That'll be fun.
Interesting. All right, guys, let's go ahead and move into our discussion of the legendary crafting that we are continuing from last week.
Long story short, Crojack's elf character, who's going to be best buddies with Aggelos' character, is going to have a legendary bow, and he's going to kill Aggelos over and over, because that's his goal. I'm kidding. I wouldn't play an elf. No offense to the elves out there.
All offense to the elves out there.
Yeah.
I hate
Elf
elves.
lives matter.
No lives matter.
So what did we talk about last week we got into the legendary crafting, right?
We didn't even start the legendary crafting because we were literally got to this point. I looked at the time and was like, this isn't going to happen because there's a lot to deal with legendary crafting. Because when you're looking at legendary crafting, to set the stage here, you're already at the upper echelons of all the progression we talked about last episode. I mean,
endgame of endgame.
Yeah, you are not at this point. If you're crafting legendary stuff, you are not doing it at the entry levels of crafting. You are not
didn't just fresh hit level cap. You know what I mean?
Right. You are not that little lonely blacksmith apprentice who barely knows how to hold a hammer the correct way. And they're going to be like, I need you to craft a legendary weapon. You're like, okay, let's do that. Oh, it's... What? You're not supposed to hold the metal with your hand? Oh, I knew I was doing something wrong. Yeah, you're going to need a little bit more skill than that in order to craft legendary items. So I broke some of this down. We're going to talk about this, and we're also going to talk about how we've seen legendary crafting in other games. Has anyone seen legendary crafting in any other MMO or even single-player games that actually required something interesting? Or what was your favorite?
First thought comes to mind is vanilla World of Warcraft. Talking about the Hammer of Ragnaros and stuff like that. That comes to mind.
Thunder Fury was also that
Thunder
way.
Fury.
Yeah.
You didn't have to craft anything for Thunder Fury, but how they tied crafting in for Thunder Fury is there was a raid boss in the tier 2 raid, Black Rock Spire?
I think so.
Is Spire or is that
no.
the dungeon? Black Rock something. Anyway, there was one goblin who actually dropped the book that taught you how to smelt Elementium.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
right. Yeah.
Only one book per raid, and this was a Blackwing Lair. Thank you, chat. Blackwing Lair. Blackrock Spire was the two split
Was the
dungeons.
dungeon.
Yeah, they had
Yeah.
Blackrock Depths, Blackrock Spire, which was the next part, and then the Blackwing Lair. So what you had to do is then you had to find a miner who had the skill, because the Elementium only dropped off of the goblins in that raid. There's only like, oh my goodness. I remember farming this afterwards, just as a completionist would. And I think my buddy and I, we probably spent close to 20 weeks running it week after week, because there were only like 20 goblin monsters in the entire thing that would have a like 1% chance to drop a piece of ore, and you needed like 100. It was a lot. But that they tied crafting into that. But that was the only part that you needed crafting for. I see chat rooms talking about the Mystic Toilet, aka legendary crafting in Guild Wars 2. Guild Wars 2 had an interesting legendary crafting because their legendaries normally didn't offer power. It was slight power, but you could craft it with other items too. They were more of a visual effect. Legendaries in this game will be more power oriented, but the actual crafting side of it was neat, especially when what they did originally, you needed a precursor weapon, which was 1000% RNG whether or not it would drop. You could have all the other rare items in the world, and you could farm those, but the precursor was a random. Now, they added precursor crafting in, I guess, Heart of Thorns, where it essentially became a scavenger hunt, doing specific achievements, finding different things. You could then build it and then continue on. Crojack, what do you got?
Nothing.
Okay.
I have absolutely nothing.
Alpha?
I think I got. I like the other way that World of Warcraft did, and I hope they do something like that with just on a smaller scale. And that's, you guys remember the Encourage event?
Vaguely.
Yeah,
A long time ago.
And it was basically an entire servers had to band together, both Horde and Alliance, in order to gather the resources needed to...
Right, it was a server-wide race against other servers to unlock AQ, if I recall.
Exactly. I would like to see something like that on a smaller scale, where guilds would essentially, rather than it being an RNG thing, be a simple, or not simple, but just like a race to gather resources in order to build.
Yeah, maybe you're
item.
gathering resources and sending them towards a neutral faction, NPC faction on the server, and guild, like you said, guilds are racing to reach a certain reputation with that faction to unlock the patterns or the...
Exactly, or you've got like a mold that can only be used once. It cannot be moved. It's at a certain location and requires an absurd amount.
Or you need to use the super enchanted anvil that neutral NPC faction has access to.
Right.
Or something like that.
How about we take the neutral out of it altogether? Absolutely enemy faction of players. I remember, and I don't even have it on my notes, maybe it's in here somewhere else, but they had mentioned the idea of metropolises generating a resource needed for legendary items. But if you are not in charge of the metropolis, how do you acquire said item?
Right, because we have to remember, we want to continue to make this game centered around the node system. The node system is integral to everything. The building and destroying of nodes is everything with this game.
And what if you require something from all types?
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Depending on, it's going to be tough to get it, but that's the idea of legendary, right?
I mean, if it's easy.
I get it. Again, you don't want to be easy. I get it. But, man.
But there's nothing to stop trade, right?
Yeah. No, I assume you could trade. But the reason why I'm saying that is, one, all right, first off, let's do the first thing here. You don't control the node. So another guild or group of individuals, or maybe even just one individual, who knows, controls that resource. What are their aspirations in the game? If it's something like making money or getting something they need, maybe they'd be willing to trade. If it's owned by a guild, they probably don't want to give it to someone else. They want to keep it within their own guild faction. So as long as they're controlling it, they have it. So you have that. Mitigating factor number one. Mitigating factor number two. There's nothing that says a metropolis has to be of a certain type, or there has to only be so many. We know there's only 5 in a world, but it doesn't mean that they have to be one of each. You could have all 5 military nodes, and then you need the other 3.
Now, the only problem with that is, let's say you do need one from each type eventually. You need different material things, legendary materials, from each node type. And you have a military metropolis. And you're like, finally, I have this military blah, 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 the legendary blah, blah, blah to make my weapon. Now I need a scientific one. Okay, how do I get a scientific one? I raise my own to the ground and then build a scientific
Pull a Nero. We're burning it to the ground.
We're going to burn it to the
It
ground.
creates this weird incentivizing of literally cycling your own nodes because you need those legendary mats.
See, but then again, nodes are
Hope that's
random,
not what
right?
happened. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so
but
that means like
I
nodes
don't like that
but
Yeah.
that way.
we also know it
Well,
could
maybe
take
that
up to 6 months to level up a node, so raising it to the ground.
Oh,
Because remember, you'd have to bring it all the way down to 0.
right. So yeah, make it so that, like you said, it takes a long time to create these metropolises. Make them very useful to have, so that you don't want to just
I don't
you
even
don't want to
think that,
incentivize people
Or-
to level their own metropolises. You just
I
don't
don't
want
think that
that's gonna
comes
be
a
the-
factor.
the drive
remember how
to
the
do a
no-
siege.
The drive to see. I don't think it's going to happen only because remember how
Face your
nodes
mic.
work. If you, oh sorry, I don't think that's
You've got this beautiful mic. Talk
What
into the
mic?
beautiful mic.
that's true. That's true. I don't think that's going to happen because of how we know that nodes work. And if you go too low, then you're going to get absorbed by the larger one. Correct?
Yeah.
Ooh, how did that?
If you drop it down, then the node in adjacent can grow past you.
Right.
What about this? Instead of building your own node up to Metropolis so that the leader can have access to this legendary blah blah blah, why not be rewarded for maybe raising someone else's to the ground?
It could be.
Encouraging, or have one or both. Why not both?
That's going to encourage castle siege if you're going to go ahead. And,
Yep.
you
We
gotta
want to
get-
encourage people to build these things and take them down, not their own, other people.
Yeah.
Let's
Other
make sure
people's,
we
yeah.
say the correct thing here, because I know I always catch myself saying the wrong thing, and no one ever catches me like when I say the wrong date. Or when I say, who was it? We were talking
I think
about
so.
Game of Thrones, and I said Ned
Yep.
Smith instead of Ned Stark,
yeah.
and not a single person noticed that either.
That's
Yeah.
Miss Sal's right.
Yeah, I as I said on our YouTube, I must have been watching too much Pocahontas with my son, the Disney movie, and Ned Stark is now John Smith from there, and yeah, it's crazy. Anyway, so I don't know those nodes, but the reason why I said castle sieges are different from node sieges. Castle
Yes.
sieges happen month by month. A node siege is supposed to be rare. If we remember watching Nodes Part 2, Nodes 3, they mentioned that when a city is sieged, that's a server event.
Yeah, you get warning. There's a period of time where you can prepare, et cetera, et cetera.
I expect node sieges because of how long it takes to level them up, how long it takes to prepare for a siege. If you thought they had trouble getting 200 people on a single battle
Oh,
royale
yeah.
map, the amount of people who are going to show up for a castle siege is going to be insane.
Yeah.
So
Well-
legendary crafting materials from metropolises. We also talk about legendary crafting materials from the highest levels of individual crafting trees as well, right? What other things could they use to gate legendary items to make them even more rare? How about really rare raid drops? That's a traditional way of doing it.
Yep.
That's
Yeah,
an
but
old school way of doing it.
they said no RNG.
No
Well,
RNG.
hold on.
No.
Um,
Obtaining a legendary item will not be RNG based.
Well, let's read the thing from Stephen Shreve. This is a quote from Stephen. The amount of effort needed and interdependencies across the different types of players between raiders and PvPers and crafters and even role players. See, and this is where we talked
explain
about
that one.
earlier. Yeah, how does that help? And the how does all right. Pause right here. How do you quantify what a role player does with in-game rewards?
The role player uses a specific emote 1,000 times. Upon the 1,000th
There you
time
go.
he does a dance, he is rewarded with a gift from
Legendary
the gods in the skies above.
The ultra dance.
The Ultra Dance. There you
So,
go.
so in reality, it's not role players. The PvPers will be able to double dip because every time they kill someone and do their loser dance, there you go. Oh wow, I got a PvP reward and the role play reward. That's awesome. I just don't see how you actually
I can't
quantify
think of a way.
an
I
RP.
don't know. We'll see how that's going to work.
That'll be something.
All right. Anyway, role players and and the taverns and and businesses, the processors and gatherers, all of those systems will likely have a component that leads towards creating or crafting that legendary item. We want to stay away from highly RNG'd system and instead take our multiple progression paths that we offer the players and put the construction components for achieving these legendary items within them so it encourages communities to work together because it's going to be difficult for just one person by themselves to gather everything. Not
So
to
here's
say,
how you make.
oh, there's more to quote. Not to say
Yeah,
that they couldn't, in an economic sense, by buying those components, that's possible. But achieving them from a time investment standpoint, we want it to be considerably less RNG focused. All right.
Here's how you make the raiders work without RNG. So the reason why you had to run Molten Core 100 times to get your bindings was because of the 1% drop, or more than 100 times. So if you want to take the RNG out of it, you have one part or one piece or one portion drop every time you kill that boss, but instead you need 200 of them, right? There's a way of gating your amount of time spent in that raid to acquire the required amount. If you don't want to go RNG, fine, increase the limit so that you know either through RNG or through a ton of them, you need to do this raid X number of times.
Mm-hmm.
You can gate it and have the difficulty that way.
That would allow you to sell piece by piece as well.
Right,
Like,
and, or buy piece by piece.
buy piece
Yeah,
by piece.
you could buy a piece. Absolutely.
As opposed to running the damn thing over and over and over, praying for the 0.1% drop.
I know
Which
World of
would drive me
Warcraft
bananas.
did this very early on. I think it was the Siege of Ulduar raid, where there was actual boss that wouldn't unlock. It was Allegon unless you were doing the harder mode, and
Yep.
you actually had to achieve and do the hard mode achievements on all the other bosses to unlock him.
You could do that too.
Oh, Algalon,
Yeah,
Yes,
Yeah.
the Star Dude. That's
Yep.
right.
the Observer.
But-
yeah.
So
You
that
could
dude
actually-
could drop your material
100.
100% of the time, but he's hard to get to, and you have to complete this raid at the most skilled level possible.
I'm actually curious.
That's what I do too.
I'm trying to figure out how many people actually downed Allegon at launch. It wasn't a
No.
lot. It was a small amount when he was relevant. You know,
When he was relevant, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm not really
Even
sure.
during
about,
that expansion, he was still not down a whole lot.
he even in
2
the
expansions later,
Yeah.
everyone did him, but
even the next expansion, he was still tough. You didn't start
Yeah.
farming him till later.
mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out. It doesn't really tell me. But I
So
know
raiding portions are pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Right. Raiding parts to it and crafting parts to it are pretty self-explanatory as well. But yeah, the role play or even religion, you have to go on some epic long quest chain to get religion involved.
Well, we
Trying
know
to-
the religion
yeah.
ones are going to be quest based. Maybe it is a long quest chain. Maybe it's something
gotta be.
along the lines where it's a tangible goal, but maybe it's something along the lines where it's like complete 10,000 quests, but it's as a node. And once the node's there, it becomes available for a short period of time that you can buy it if you had helped participate. Or maybe
Yep.
it's, it spawns an event that has a chance of dropping it. I could see that being a case as well. But definitely not the RNG side of things.
I wonder how powerful these legendary items, whether they're weapons or armor, are going to be commensurate to how difficult they are to get.
Let me hit up this other point
How
here.
game-breaking are they going to be?
Well, there will absolutely be legendary items, and they're not items that are attained easily, nor are they granted out in volume. There might even be items that are single items that will exist on a server at any given time. The discovery of legendary items will also unlock further chapters in the lore. Now, I know we talked about the reason why I wanted to mention this before we answered your question is because they did highlight the fact that there may only be one on a server. I don't
But did
actually
you notice the word discovery?
well,
Not necessarily crafting. You may have both. You may have crafting legendary items.
I think that's just
Yeah,
verbiage
discover.
that they added in there. That when you put
Could
it all
be.
together, hey, someone actually discovered a legendary item from the past because apparently all legendary items are supposed to be. We talked about the appearance. Let's actually talk about this. This is a quote from Steven. It will be very ornate and detailed weapon, more so than any other weapon or piece of equipment in the game. It will also include some awesome looking effects that won't be too gaudy. That's open to subjection.
Yeah,
Well,
gaudy subjective.
Yeah, I honestly think everything in APOC is gaudy. But anyway, they won't be too bright or shiny so that it doesn't look good. They will be suitable for people when you notice it. You'll go, wow, that guy's a weapon. The reason why I wanted to highlight that is we had talked about discovering the lore, we also know that APOC takes place a long time before the MMO. Crojack actually thought of this, and I still cling to this day, that the weapons and armor that we see in APOC could possibly be the legendary items we discover when the MMO comes out.
Now, if that's true from a visual standpoint, I don't think these pieces of weapons stand out enough to me in terms of a legendary impact. Hey, you are the traditional give me chainmail, give me plate, give me leather straps, give me a simple halberd. Yeah, you're the traditional kind of guy.
I know.
We have to wait and see with our first MMO testing what regular armor weapon looks like. We don't know. I'm assuming it's going to look like your standard stuff, like a standard high fantasy kind of stuff. It should. It's bronze and iron and leather and.
I'm gonna transmog my legendary item into the level 1 sword.
Oh, I would. I couldn't even.
Would they allow that?
Probably not.
Because then you're hiding your true ability.
Yes.
You can hide your true ability with
just like
cosmetics.
the customs. Yeah, there you go.
Just
right.
like we talked about previously.
Yeah.
Can I hide my plate mail with a cloth cosmetic? I want to know.
Conversation. Yeah.
I want to know.
No, definitely. I honestly think you could.
That's so bad for PvP.
Oh yeah, no. We said that before. That was an argument with ESO when they added the wedding dress. The fact that you could hide what armor you were wearing. Yeah, I mean, that is bad for PvP, especially depending on how much counterplay, knowing what kind of weapon and armor someone has. That did have a big impact. Not so much in ESO because two-handed weapon was a two-handed weapon, but let's say that. Well, I guess it really would, because I was thinking swords were whatever. You could make your two-handed mace look like a two-handed sword. Problem is, two-handed mace had a lot of penetration, and you dealt different with that. The sword wasn't a big deal, but you couldn't tell what the person was wearing.
That's a very, very kind of pay-to-win thing.
Yeah, you're edging.
It gives you a distinct advantage.
Mm-hmm.
If you can buy things that you can use to craft into a legendary weapon.
Well, yeah, no, that's a straight up pay to win.
Oh yeah,
right.
that's
just
not
straight up pay to
even
win.
that's not even
There's no gray there. That's just straight up.
Mm-hmm.
You're spending money to get mats. Like that's just 100%.
Yeah. No, I don't think they'll ever cross into that. But hiding what you're wearing, I mean, whether it's transmogging a legendary item so no one knows that you have this epic thing. Well, going back to your question, how epic? If they're that rare, I'd want them to be
Powerful.
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
they better be.
I'm thinking, despite the fact my wife hates it, and a lot of people actually hated the movie, but the King Arthur, The Legend of the Sword. Anyone see that? I love that.
I don't think I saw it.
Oh, I love
I
it.
have not.
It's is his name Guy Ritchie? I don't know. No, that's not his name. Anyway, guy who's famous for liking big explosions, and he was the same guy who did the Sherlock Holmes movies.
Yep.
His style was seen throughout the whole movie. It actually got a really bad rating, but I loved it. But when you saw Uther Pendragon with Excalibur fighting against Mordred, it was, like Mordred had all his magic, but this thing like absorbed it. You could tell it was a legendary weapon. It was cool to see. Yeah. So I don't know. Like, I know with legendary items, you would have to open world stuff, let them be powerful. But when you start getting to arenas, I think you'd have to limit them.
I think so too, because you're gonna take the whole arena.
Yeah. Crojack, since I mentioned this one, how do you feel about limiting legendary items?
I am totally fine with them limiting them. I want them to feel special.
No. I mean limiting them in power. The reason why I said that is before you walked off the screen, I had said, in the open world, I want them to be legendary, but when it comes down to like the arena stuff, you wouldn't want someone to have a legendary item in an arena because then that's instant win. Oh, my.
So, anytime MMOs with raiding and PvP, if they try and do both in an instanced arena way, it's so annoying and frustrating and hard to deal with. Do you scale down the raiders' gear and make it all even and homogenize for PvP? Do you let the raiders use their powerful gear in PvP and stomp people? different games, different MMOs have done different ways, and no one's really found an answer to make everyone happy. I don't know how you make everyone happy when it comes to that particular problem. You spend all this time, effort, and collaboration of tons of people to create this thing, and then you jump into an arena and it's a simple stat stick that everyone else also has.
Yeah. Well, see, WoW did that because the thing that made legendary items so legendary wasn't the stats. The stats were pretty much in line. They might have been slightly higher because they used an item level system. It was normally just slightly higher than the best thing you could get in the raid. But the thing that made them so amazing was their secondary effect. The thing that they also did. Shadowmourne, for instance, the two-handed axe you could get in Ice Crown. Its special ability was as you were attacking things, it was consuming the souls of the enemies you attacked from the RP side. But then once you collected so many, it exploded out and caused damage. That damage was insane.
Yep.
What they did was they just disabled it in PvP. So that equip effect no longer was there.
I actually think that I'm kind of with Krojack here. I think you should be able to realize the benefits of your weapon in arena, not as long as it's within the MMO itself. I think you should be able to utilize it.
But that
World of
skews the
Warcraft
ranks. That if there's a
World of
ranking
Warcraft tried to
system,
yes, they took arenas and tried to make it an esport. That's what World of Warcraft did. They said, okay, we're going to make 2v2s, 3v3s into an esport type thing. That's why they had to balance it. If Intrepid decides, you know what, this arena thing is a side thing, and if you want to go in there and have fun, go for it, but, person beware, then that's how they do it. If they want to turn it into an esport level arena where it's competitive and there's balance and stuff, then yeah, good luck with legendary weapons.
then why
But if
add
it's
leaderboards in the first place?
So they're going to do that. They're going to try for the esports, just
Why
like they tried for the BR.
Mm-hmm.
They may have not said that yet, but they will.
No.
Yeah, it's a good chance.
And if they wanted to, I'm going to be frank here. If they wanted to have a presence on Steam or on not Steam, Twitch, you need to have that aspect. MMOs are one of the most boring things in the world to watch on Twitch. I mean, just let's face it. I mean, I was thinking about streaming some of my BDO gameplay. So much of it is me life skilling because that's how I make money. I'm going to cook 900 omelets. You're like, well, why are you doing that? Oh, trust me. There's money in this. You just wait,
But with the MMO, can they?
Huh?
Because they've already said they're not balancing it.
They're
Or
not balancing it
one-on-one
on a 1v1.
Right. Oh, so you mean like a group
Yeah.
arena?
Yeah, what if they go 4v4?
Gotcha.
It'll
6v6?
be a ELO rating. Probably more likely than not. An ELO rating based on how you've been doing as a
So
group.
if they take it seriously, they're going to make it so that PvE gear is unusable in arenas, and you'll need PvP specific gear, or they'll flatline everything and make everything equal so that your individual skill and talent comes through instead of your stats, which sucks. Which feels bad as an
just PvP, right? So it's that's an interesting thing.
Guild Wars 2 tried that. Their structured PvP, you literally zoned into another zone where you were instantly level 80. The gear you had, it didn't even use your MMO gear.
It doesn't, yeah. You just get flatlined.
Yeah, flatline gear that everyone else has. That's really the only effective way of making anything competitive.
So that your composition and your individual skill with your abilities and stuff will dictate how you win.
Right. And that's the only way you can make a game esport. Because everything has to be fair.
Yeah, why do you think shooters are so amazing for esports? Because everyone's got the same walk speed, everyone's got the same damage.
Yep.
It just comes down to your skill with your aiming.
Yep.
Now, in open world PvP, like node sieges or castle sieges, if there's a legendary weapon, run. Just straight up.
Yeah, exactly. That's going to be the interesting part to me. When a legendary weapon shows up on a server and the Castle Siege is going against a group, and then all of a sudden, like a nuclear freaking bomb goes off, right?
It's the Emperor in ESO. When an Emperor shows up in ESO.
More so than that. Hey, big stuff. That's going to be interesting.
That's what I want to see.
No, I want to see it.
I almost think for esports, they've already got the framework in the BR and the apocalypse aside. Like, I don't see why they would do
They will
esports
take
with the
the
MMO.
arena seriously if there is interest for it to be taken seriously. If the community, the gaming community goes, hey, we want to do this legit, then they'll provide that if they think there's an interest there.
If they think they can make some money to support the MMO.
Yeah.
Yep.
To be frank, though, there hasn't been an MMO that has had a valid esport
Oh, agreed.
That
I don't think
makes,
it'll work.
Yeah, you're right.
that makes money.
I agree. I don't think it'll work
Because
But-
even the
Oh,
Blizzard
okay.
esport for WoW Arenas is paid by Blizzard Activision's
Blizzard.
massive
Yeah.
pockets for the pools.
Right. Mhm.
And that's because they were trying to force. Anyway, back on to this last part here before we wrap up the conversation. We're already going long. Legendary items are not intended to be temporary. Notable exception to this is the royal mounts. Fronian Castle are ruling a city. This is a quote from Stephen Sharif. The fact that there is only one of them, or very few of them, depending on what it is, I think that in and of itself, this is a balanced component, right? And you need to make sure that the players who are striving for these legendary things and who are devoted the time and energy, resources in order to achieve them are accurately rewarded. We do not intend on having legendary items that are temporary. Reason why I highlighted this. Every other piece of gear in the game breaks.
Yep.
How are they going to do that? Are we
Just
going
make
to
them indestructible by nature. That's part of their fact of being legendary. Is indestructible by nature. Imagine you gather all the legendary materials and crafting materials and blah 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 to make this darn thing, and then you need more of them to maintain it. Blech.
No,
the
I
materials themselves would be indestructible.
Sure,
well,
the
let's
metal's indestructible. That wood is indestructible. The cloth is indestructible.
That's why it's special.
Okay.
It's the holy hand grenade of
How do you
Antioch. It's
how do you
what it is.
craft with something that's indestructible? How do you smelt a metal bar that's indestructible?
So real quick, do you guys think that if you get a legendary weapon, you should have it for eternity, or should it
No.
break at some point?
I think it should break.
Eternity until a new expansion comes and renders it useless, and then it goes in your bank and collects
There you
dust
go.
like every other legendary of all time and every other
Exactly,
MMO.
right?
You're also assuming that the system in here is going to be item level based. What if it's not? A new expansion maybe just brings new land or new systems, not necessarily a
New
power
expansions
increase.
always bring new power.
Not necessarily.
Always. I can't think of an MMO that
ESO?
didn't.
ESO does it all the time. Yeah.
ESO, the gear is always the same.
Then what's the
Never
point of?
doesn't.
You can
Right.
get champion, which is an alternate advancement, but that doesn't affect your gear.
So you can have the same gear through each expansion.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah.
Now they release new sets that maybe make you go, man, I should probably do a different build. But
Need a different set,
technically, you don't need to. I'm
Yeah.
trying to think of the
That's
other one.
weird. That's so counter to what I know.
BDO is a good example. Gear doesn't even have level stats.
BDO
on it.
doesn't have raids.
No, but it has PvP raids.
That's true.
Okay.
But there are bosses, world bosses, but their gear is just gear.
So that's a great question that we can approach Steven with. If they do decide to do an expansion, is there going to be an increase in level cap? Is there going to be an increase in the power level of gear in that expansion? I'm not sure they have an answer to that yet.
No, I don't think so.
But that's an overarching philosophy to their eventual progression that he'll need to know.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm actually sort of fond of the no super massive gear progression. I like the set type thing that ESO did. That may or may not change. Whatever. But when it comes down to are items like this destructible, I actually think they should be. I do.
Remember how I used the word feels bad, man, to describe certain aspects? Having your legendary thing become degradable, maybe break entirely,
Yeah.
it's a
You
feel
won't
bad
use it.
mechanic.
You won't use it.
People won't use it, or they'll
Hey.
use it for special
Hey,
occasions.
hold on. Two things. I'm going to give you an in-game example, and I'm also going to give you an example specifically meant for Crowjack. What happened when Narsil broke?
What the heck is Narsil?
Narsil is
Get
the,
off my show right now.
Lord of the Rings. The sword before it was broken.
Guess what? It was
Oh, that's what it
reforged
was.
into
Okay,
a new legendary item. I think you should be able to reforge it, but I don't think they should be indestructible. I think it should take effort. They can last longer than normal gear, but I think they should have a shelf life.
I do too. Yeah.
I don't care if it's like, let's just put this in perspective. And as an example, let's say that and a piece of gear, let's say you play 8 hours a day, every single day, essentially beating on a dummy like you would in BDO, just nonstop beating it. And I know I said that, it sounds dirty. A normal weapon would break after 1 week. Legendary item would break after 4 months. It could be like that level of growth difference between the two, but I think it should still break and need to be reforged.
If a legendary weapon takes 8 months to a year to craft, I'm just gonna pull numbers out of my butt
Sure.
here. If it takes that long to craft and then it breaks, how long is it gonna take to be forged? Same timeline?
Maybe not. Maybe
This is where I
you
talk
only need a
about-
portion of it. Like you still have the you still have the shards of Narsil. You just needed to put it together.
True.
That would be some way of balancing using it in an arena. If there was some way of degradation against it, they aren't going to use it in the arena just for the fun of it. Right? They're going to want to use it for special occasions when there's a real battle.
The second example I'm going to bring here is anyone who's played Dark Age of Camelot will know this. When they released Trials of Atlantis, they had released essentially the equivalent of legendary items. They were called artifacts. These artifact items were originally touted as being, you could only get them one time per character. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
You got them, and then people were like, dude, they're going to start degrading. People didn't like the idea of degrading in that game. So what they did is they made it just so that it cost a ton to reforge it. But it never actually broke like normal gear would. What essentially happened was the entire meta of the game changed, and it affected PvP. You couldn't even PvP anymore until you had that full outfit set of all artifact. It changed the economy because entire sets, no one made chest armor anymore because if you didn't get that chest of hearts or whatever it was called, chest of devotion, I don't remember, you just didn't play.
Now that won't happen in this game because this game won't have legendaries for every single person.
That depends. I know they said they want them to be rare, but if you don't have them degrade, what happens when the person who has the legendary items essentially never gets dethroned? Because if it's as OP as, say, the Emperor in ESO, an Emperor in ESO can single-handedly hold off 30 or 40 people. Like, it's meant to be OP. Like that.
And that brings up an interesting point. They did mention that maybe there will only be ever one per server of a particular legendary weapon. Let's pick a bow. Let's say there's only one legendary bow per server ever. What if that person decides, I'm done playing. I'm kind of going to retire, or I might take 3 months off. No one else can create that bow. No one else can get that bow. How do they work with that?
Yeah. No, it's true. It's very
Well, they have
true.
one ingredient that never gets replicated, right? So you can stop that. It's interesting.
Well, tying, especially since they said legendaries are related to lore. What if the item to create the legendary is off a lore world boss that happens when the entire server hits a certain level progression? Think the Gates of Encourage. Only one person got to ring the gong and got the mount per server. That's how it went. So what happens if when that boss is defeated, he dropped his heart? Of course you would if you didn't have a heart, whatever. But he doesn't respawn ever. And that's his legendary.
I think gamers now are going to have more of an issue with that.
Oh, yeah. The idea legendaries will be a one-off. There are going to be people who like it. I like that idea. I mean,
there are people who are pissed that only people who are mayors or guild masters of castles get flying mounts. There are people furious about that.
Fair, right? That's the whole mentality.
Not
that
everyone.
is
There are
going to
people who think it's great.
no, but there's that mentality, the common denominator of everything should be fair.
right.
Yeah.
That's going to be an issue with legendary items.
I'm going to bring another game into this discussion. But like you said about the flying mounts, not everyone gets to be Daenerys Targaryen. Sorry.
Yep.
True.
Not everyone's the mother of dragons, despite the fact you wish you were. Another game that actually brought this up, and it was really funny, they actually talked about Chronicles of Illyria. Game is significantly farther back than this one in terms of progression or development as far as we can see. But one thing that they had mentioned in character development is that not every character is going to be the same. Magic, for instance, is rare in the world. You may unlock it because there's no one way to unlock it. It's kind of like a hidden dice roll that your character has the ability to cast magic. And if an event happens to you in your life, hey, I learned to cast a spell. You are now a mage, but there's no picking a mage class. That is creating a unique experience. People still am currently angry about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
This is MMO. I want to be a wizard. Let me roll a wizard. Wait, I can't roll a wizard. What do you mean I can't roll a wizard? I can see why they're mad.
Yeah.
It's a cool thought, but doing it as something so basic as your class, like choosing your class, should just be simple. If I want to be a wizard, let me pick a wizard.
Yeah, but
I understand why people get upset about that.
But that could be the same thing here.
Sure.
The same premise, the same idea of digital exclusivity. I want to have that red dragon. Sorry, that was a one-time world event. So-and-so had it.
People can draw a parallel between those two things, but the parallels we're drawing are your most basic decision-making when it comes to construction of your character versus a dragon or a legendary sword. There's big differences here. Something that everyone should have the option to choose your class, and then riding a dragon. Not everyone gets to do that.
No, I agree. Anyway, guys, that's going to be the end of our discussion for this week. I want to thank my amazing co-hosts. We got Stormslord, Digital Piper Studios. You can find the links to all of these guys in the description of the podcast below. We got Alpha Soul. He streams. He does videos. It's awesome. And, of course, Crowjack, who does all of the above, as well as joining Shield Walls. Anyone who has one, he will join it. Anyway, there you go, guys. You can follow everything we do over at dungeoncrawlernetwork.com. There you can find links to all of our social media, including Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Be sure to check out our Patreon program, patreon.com/dungeoncrawlernetwork, if you want to help support the show. You could also consider leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. Remember, we are trying to hit 100 5-star reviews by the end of this year.
Where are we at?
We are at like 59.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
59. I know people don't like iTunes, but hey, it really does help. It allows people to know that we are a real podcast, that we say real words. Sometimes they matter. Again, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of From the Ashes, and we'll see you next time. See you later, everybody.